Hello, my name is Todd Bigelow. I'm a freelance photographer based in Los Angeles for the last 30 years, working with editorial, corporate, and nonprofit clients. I'm an adjunct professor of photography and photojournalism, workshop founder, and author of the Freelance Photographer's Guide to Success Business Essentials. This is just a short video series where I talk about business topics for freelance photographers. Hope you enjoy. Hey everybody, thanks for stopping in. We're going to jump right into it today. I'm going to tie in a general concept that runs through all business and particularly is at play right now in our general economy, and that's supply and demand. Okay, so when you have a supply, you're going to supply a service, a product, anything like that, and you have an overabundance of supply and not enough demand, then you're going to struggle a little bit, right? Your fees, your income, there's just not enough demand for what you're offering. You're going to have to find a way to generate enough income to, make that product or make that service worthwhile for your time in business. In the general economy right now, supply and demand is out of whack with a few things. In particular, the housing industry. So if you're paying attention to what's going on around the country, you know that the housing market is just absolutely on fire and has been for a while. And that's 100% because there's just not enough supply anywhere, particularly here in LA, but in places like Boise and Nashville and Austin and on and on. There's just an overabundance of demand and not enough supply. So the prices have gone sky high, right? So you can see that relationship. When there's an overabundance of demand and not enough supply, then the person that has a supply or the service or whatever it is has the upper hand. It can drive the prices up. So in the housing market, that's the seller, right? The seller knows there's not enough homes on the market, so he's going to hold out and make you go higher and higher and higher on your price until he finally or she finally agrees to sell. Okay. So that's also with the lumber industry right now. It shut down during COVID. They're trying to crank it up. There's more demand, much more demand for lumber than there is supply. So places like Lowe's and Home Depot and these places, their prices are going up because they're having to pay more to, the lumber industry. Those that are logging and cutting and distributing, their fees have gone up. So the buyers of the lumber have to pay higher, and then they're going to, to get the product, then they're going to charge the consumer because they need to make their profit also. So again, that's a supply and demand issue. So what's that have to do with freelance photography? Well, everything. And I've seen this over many years of shooting. The supply of photographers outweighs the demand. And that's been proven through statistics provided by the U.S. Bureau of Labor, Department of Labor Statistics, or the Department of Labor, Bureau of Labor Statistics. Sorry, hard word to pronounce. So, they track these things. So supply and demand is at the core of what they're projecting, which is there's going to be a continuing oversupply of photographers and a, average supply or average demand for them. So it's out of whack in the other way compared to the housing and lumber industry. We have too much supply and not enough demand, which means that the buyer or the client in this case that wants your services is going to have the upper hand, and they can demand lower rates or insufficient contracts in your perspective, but they have the upper hand on it because if there's more supply and they offer you a fee that you don't like, whether it's a publication or a nonprofit or a foundation or whatever, they know your client or potential client knows that they can find somebody else that will accept it because there's a big supply of photographers. Okay, and they're all willing and looking for work. So I've talked about three categories of people that I've seen kind of come into the profession, right? One, in this time of year, there's no surprise that all the universities and colleges have graduated new photographers into the profession. Okay, some of them are photojournalists, some of them are art photographers that are looking to find a way to make income in using their camera in any way. So they'll take any sort of assignment. A lot of them don't have a good, background from the university and learning about the business side. They haven't really had that instruction on that side, most of them. And if they have, they still haven't, they still don't have the experience level to learn how to negotiate or try to gain any leverage to get a better fee. Okay, quite frankly, they're inexperienced young photographers, and they don't really have a lot of leverage to make demands of a potential client. I get it. So they're willing to come in and increase the supply of photographers that are available to clients to hire. And oftentimes those clients know they can get them at a pretty reasonable fee, subpar fee. Other photographers that I've seen come into the profession that have, kind of added to the supply, like the U.S. Department of Labor has indicated, are what I call second career professionals, or semi-retired people. They're in their 50s. Somebody like myself that have done well in business. I've seen them. I've had IT professionals and engineers, and I've had people at Photo Fusion in Palm Beach, where I taught a workshop a couple of years back, and there are a lot of young people that were looking to do a second career. They've left their first career because they've done well and they have money, they're financially stable, and they love photography, they're good at it, they love doing it, and they want to do it. So, there's no issue with doing it. So they don't feel any need to meet a certain fee demand, or contractual terms are practically irrelevant for those that I've spoken with. And I understand that. Photography is a beautiful art form and they just want to do it. And if they want to shoot portraits, the engineer that I know that had taken my workshop and been with a local organization loved music and shot a music festival every year for free, a large music festival. One of my friends and former colleague on staff at a large newspaper tried to get that music festival that came to his city every year as a client, and they literally told him they have somebody that they really like working with who volunteers. Okay, and we knew who that was. So, this impacts our freelance profession, and we just have to accept that, because there's no rules as to who can be a photographer and who can't. So we have new students, we have retired or second career professionals. And then we also have new professionals, new freelancing professionals. Sometimes those are the staffers that have kind of, been forced out of their position at publications or corporations, foundations, whatever the case might be. And they're good photographers, obviously, and they don't want to leave it behind, so they're now going to make a go of it freelancing, and they don't necessarily have an understanding of the fee structure, and in particular the contractual terms. So as staffers, they've never had to worry about those things, and they don't really understand the contracts that come with them, and they've always not owned their images anyways as staffers, so for them to not own them as freelancers doesn't seem to have the impact that it does for those of us that have freelanced for a long time. We know that we derive income from secondary uses of our images, whereas former staffers that are entering the freelance profession and adding to that supply of freelance photographers, they don't really understand that because they've never really dealt with it. Okay, so those three categories have resulted in a growing supply of photographers that are available to clients to hire. And so major media organizations, to tie it all together, places like the New York Times and AP and AFP and Reuters and places that hire a lot of freelancers, these are great places for us to work. We get our work out there, we're covering important things. I understand that. But they also offer a more or less take it or leave it contract. They can, because they have the leverage. They know that there is a big supply of photographers, so they can set the terms. Just like, the seller of a home right now can set the terms. If you don't like it, then they're just going to move on to the next person. And that's how it is with a lot of the major media organizations. They're going to say, take it or leave it. And, if you don't like our terms or fee, then we'll find somebody else. That's a supply issue. Okay. And we have to accept that. And you'll have to determine whether or not it's in your best interest to accept those types of jobs, which is why I always, to go on a little sidebar here, to why I always suggest having a very wide, diverse set of clients, so that you can hopefully move away from those that offer unreasonable demands, particularly for owning your images. And try to work with those that treat you more fairly. And over time, you can do it. I've done it. I've never signed a work for hire. I've scrapped and struggled to try to find the right clients that treat me fairly, pay fairly, and we have a good relationship, so they don't kind of use that supply issue as leverage. Okay, they're willing to work fairly. They're out there, but it's not easy. I won't lie to you. Okay, but at the core of all of this is supply and demand. Understand that and use that in whatever way you can to help your own business. Okay, but the reality is there is a big supply of photographers, and it does not match the demand for them. Okay, and that's the basis of much of our economy anyways. All right, hope that generalized discussion tying back into freelancing helps. I appreciate you dropping by, and I hope to see you next time.